Welcome back to the Viking Update Show on the Talk North Podcast Network. I'm John Krasinski from The Athletic, normally joined by Jim Suhan from the Star Tribune. He is on vacation, as it seems like he's been on vacation all summer long, but we are proud and honored to be joined by Matthew Coller from Purple Insider. We are in a little bit of the dog days of the offseason with football, but we will find some things to talk about here with the Vikings. Get Matthew Coller's perspective on where things are going, where things have been with the Vikings, what to look forward to in training camp. We are brought to you by the Aquarius Home Services Studios, presented by Onyx Maps and Chew Vision Institute. Matthew Coller, football. Let's go.
Johnny, it's going to be hard for me not to turn everything back to whether LeBron's coming to Minnesota or not. So I will try to stay focused on the Vikings for our conversation here.
As we were talking about, maybe it could be a dual role, come back and play some basketball, some football for the Vikings. And, if you want to be a legend, do it in two sports. That's what I say.
I mean, Ahmad Rashad, didn't he play like a preseason game for the 76ers or something? And then also a legendary Minnesota Viking? I mean, come on, LeBron, like, what are you doing? Dave Winfield, multiple sport athlete. There is a long history that, I don't know. I guess we should challenge LeBron to see if he can actually raise his game to that level. And the Vikings red zone could use a jump ball guy, kind of like Kyle Rudolph, only with a 44-inch vertical or whatever LeBron James has. I think it would work.
I mean, it's worth a shot, I think, is all it is. 42 years old. You don't need you from the other goal line to the 20. Just when the Vikings get down there, that's when we deploy you. It's not asking too much.
Well, and there was also a story one time that Charles Barkley told that the Auburn football coach wanted him to join the football team just to block field goals. So, I mean, like LeBron blocking field goals, everybody's kicking from 60 plus yards these days. Just stand there, both hands up, and when he kicks it, jump up, right? I mean, these are legitimate advantages. I mean, they keep lots of guys on the practice squad. You could just elevate them for, the biggest moment, and then there you go.
Well, it's funny. We've talked about, I think I've talked about this a little bit before, but this sheer size differential between NBA players and NFL players is incredible. Like every time the Wolves go to Dallas, Micah Parsons is there because he's a big NBA fan and he's a big Ant fan. And he always comes back to the locker room afterward and they take a picture and they'll swap jerseys and Ant will stand next to Micah Parsons, the most ferocious defensive player in the league, just this absolute monster. And Ant, taller, maybe a few pounds lighter, but like you see it and it's like, this is a shooting guard. Like this is, and Ant is a good sized dude in the NBA. He's by no means a massive dude. And meanwhile, he is towering over Micah Parsons, the most feared guy in the NFL.
Yeah, I think that just in general, like 6'6", 6'7" is hard to conceptualize for any regular person. Like even standing next to Caleb Banks, like, oh yeah, he's just 6'6" and 330 pounds. You know how big 330-pound dude is with 84-inch wingspan, whatever. It's pretty crazy to see. But you're right. Like NBA players are the ones because we get this high shot from the camera. They all kind of look, okay, you could see Wemby out there, but 6'5" to 6'9", they don't look that much different. And then you go down on the floor and you go, oh my God, those guys are so huge. So yeah, no, I know. And well, Ant would be probably like an outside linebacker in the NFL based on his size. And he would probably be he'd be like Von Miller, I think, with his like explosiveness is probably what that would be his NBA or his NBA to NFL comp.
Yep. Well, Matthew, you and I have a little thing that goes on, like when we ever see each other, especially at US Bank Stadium, we always just say football. And that's kind of like a play on just, the hot takes, the football, just obsessed culture. What is this time of year right now like for you, Mr. Football? Like are you just relaxing? Are you sitting up and you wake up in cold sweats thinking about, full house backfields or schematic changes that KOC is going to make with this group? Like what's your life consisting of these days?
It's definitely much closer to the latter. I mean, I'm just sort of looking at my watch, looking at the calendar. How close are we to football? Now, I mean, look, I go golfing and stuff. You know, I take some time and there's a little travel mixed in because there isn't a flood of news at this point. But the way that I would look at it is this time of year is for imagining how it's going to work and then thinking about what's going to happen if our simulated scenarios in our brain play out. So just for example, there's this little thing called the quarterback competition that's going to go on.
Not really familiar.
And this time of year would be to think about what will happen if it plays out in different ways. So if Kyler Murray wins the job, then what? Then what? And every question that you can ask yourself, and this is why football is so awesome, right? They play 17 times a year, and the rest of the time we talk about it and imagine it and simulate it and think about it and come up with ideas. It's not like basketball where they play every other day and then play all the way until June in the playoffs. This goes fast, right? So, but when you think about it's a fascinating experiment to just say to yourself, what if Kyler Murray wins the job? I mean, that's what most people expect, rightfully, is Kyler to win the job. But then the next step is, what do you do with J.J. McCarthy? Do you keep him as your backup quarterback and tell him, hey, kid, your career's not over at age 23. Make the most of this, develop and be ready. Kyler could get hurt in week 3. Not that any Vikings quarterbacks have ever had injuries that have altered the shape of the franchise or anything, but it could happen, right? And then you start to go down the line. Okay, well, what if Kyler is 6-3? Then what do? Does Nolan Teasley at the trade deadline make a big move and kind of go all in for this? And what if at the end of the year he's got 4,000 yards passing and 30 touchdowns, and how much is he going to cost? Every single thing has a different question. Or what if he's just okay? And then wouldn't it have been better to just play J.J. McCarthy and give him more time and see, right? There's an interesting needle to thread that the Vikings have to hit with Kyler Murray to make this worth it. And I think that's getting to the playoffs, playing like a top 10 to 14 quarterback in the NFL. And then there's more questions off of that. Even if you play as the 14th best quarterback in the NFL, I'm sure that along the many years we've been covering Vikings together in some capacity, John, we said about Kirk Cousins, is he really good enough to get him over the hump? And then now we're like, no, it's great to have the 14th best quarterback in the league. Well, you can't really say both, right? So that's just one example, and you could do this really with any position across the entire roster of what happens if Caleb Banks is super ready to play right away, way more than we think. I mean, you can answer all those questions, and that's kind of what we're doing right now until we get to training camp and start charting every warm-up pass that these guys throw.
So from what you saw in the mini camps and the OTAs, just what stood out to you firstly about Kyler and how he went about it, how he's trying to find his way here? What were your overall impressions on the very early side of the Kyler Murray experience?
Yeah, the first practice that we saw, Kyler threw the ball so well in OTAs that I think we all just said, this thing is over. Just name it Kyler Murray. And based on his actual accuracy in real football games, that tracks. He is got flaws for sure. That's why he's here. But he is a very, very accurate quarterback, and his ability to throw with layering, anticipation, all these things that we heard about a lot when McCarthy struggled with them, Kyler Murray can do all these things. But as minicamp OTAs played out, we also saw that this is a guy who does not know the Minnesota Vikings offense. And when he talked about it candidly, of course, you had people making way too much of it, but he was asked directly, what's the hardest part of this? And he said, well, I've never in my life not had all the snaps, right? He won the Heisman Trophy, and then he was the first overall draft pick, and now he's here kind of fighting for his starting career. That's not Kyler Murray. I mean, this is a guy, I wrote a story about this, is considered the best high school player ever in the state of Texas. Think about the state of Texas in football, right? And this guy is considered potentially number one ever there. Myles Garrett is another one that comes up, Matthew Stafford, Patrick Mahomes, and they say Kyler was probably better than all of them. So he has not been in a position too often in his lifetime where people were questioning whether he was going to be the starter or splitting reps. And you could see it sometimes. You could see him run a play and then sort of, all right, was that what I was supposed to do? Okay, let's talk about it. And that's what minicamp is. And that's also why it was really hard, even in those couple of weeks, because the fans, the outside world, they want to know, how are they looking? Who's winning the battle? And it's like, this is not the phase where we decide who's winning the battle. I would say from JJ McCarthy's perspective that he did enough to stick around in this. Like, he looked like there were some areas of his game that were improved, I guess. But I also think, how am I supposed to know? I mean, I'm watching him throw in shorts. No one is rushing him. You cannot hit the wide receivers if you're the corners. I mean, are we really supposed to evaluate this? Okay, they put on pads and get out there in training camp. Yeah, you can see what's going on, but not in the mini camp phase. I really don't think. So from Kyler in general, though, I also see when people talk about him being more introverted, more kind of to himself, he's not jumping around like JJ McCarthy, dapping up everybody, high-fiving everybody. I think he is a quiet guy, and even at the podium, the same sort of thing. Like, he politely answered all the questions, and he didn't try to really shy away from anything that we asked him, but it wasn't like he was going around the room saying, hey, I'm Kyler, great to meet you, we're going to be best friends. Like, you've seen that thing done before. A new player wants to meet everybody, and that's just not him. I think he is really kind of to himself, which I don't know, like, it's unusual for a quarterback because a lot of times quarterbacks are a little bit more like that. But, you know, they don't have to be. Sam Darnold wasn't the biggest rah-rah guy. We know that Kirk Cousins wasn't either. So, but that was kind of interesting of watching him throw the ball and how different it is than J.J. McCarthy to see a guy who's a number one draft pick and has had a decent amount of success in his career, to see him throw it and go, all right, that's kind of more how it's supposed to look, and more how Kirk would throw it, more how Darnold would throw it. Maybe not with as much velocity as Darnold, but what we can really learn, I'll tell you what I used to do during minicamp. We used to stand on the sideline and we would all draft a random wide receiver at the bottom of the roster and make that our guy for training camp. Right? I'm going to take that guy from Utah Tech, and you're going to take that guy or whatever. And the winner, if the guy makes the practice squad, you get a milkshake or so. That's what we used to do, because minicamp is just not for that. It's usually for reporters to go out there and just get a chance to talk to the players, not for us to evaluate their practice.
Yeah. So one of the most interesting dynamics, I think, of this situation is going to be, and you hit on it a little bit, going into training camp, you can tell, even like I could even tell from afar, just observing the way that JJ McCarthy was carrying himself, is that I think he believes that he has an advantage in the familiarity with the players, and that he is going to be the outgoing quarterback leader, politicker, that type of a role, or that type of a voice that he is going to take. And I actually kind of appreciate that he's been a little candid about, or if you were to say, he doesn't like this. Like, he thinks that this is his job. He's going to try and win it. He's not trying to be super friendly. And so, like, this is a real competition. And it feels like he thinks that there might be an advantage for him to be gained in the way that he moves, like literally in a locker room, in the meeting rooms, with the media, like presenting himself as the starting quarterback. And I wonder, obviously it all comes down with all these players and everything, like, can you throw me the ball on time and on target? Like, that's the main thing, of course. But if this is a competition that is at all close, it seems like he believes there's going to be an edge for him to be gained in the intangible kind of relationship aspect of things. I just wonder how all that plays out.
Well, I think that McCarthy naturally is also super outgoing, very friendly guy, and likes to relate to people. It stood out to all of his teammates last year just how well he connected with people. And, I've chatted with him on the sideline and things like that. He is a very easy person to, even if you don't know him at all, you feel like you do very quickly. And I think that goes for everybody across the locker room. And last year I had heard from teammates that, like, they wanted him to succeed badly. They believed in him. They loved his energy. They loved his vibe, all that sort of stuff. They loved even some of the stuff that was over the top, which we saw a little bit, maybe too much of giving himself a nickname or whatever, which I never thought much of. And this, had they gone 12-5,
1,000%.
everyone would have been tattooing the number 9 on their bodies.
Everyone let Kobe be Black Mamba because he said he was Black Mamba because he won like Black Mamba. Like he made that up, like all by himself. So
Right. I mean, if a random player came out and said, I'm Black Mamba, people would be like, oh, okay, whatever, man. But if you're Kobe Bryant, you get to do that. So, I always thought that was kind of result related more than it was some sort of problem with JJ McCarthy. I do think that, his emotions are a problem at times where he gets so amped up and he gets so like that enthusiasm that everyone loves can also bubble over to being panic or being anxious out on the field, trying way too hard. I remember Kevin O'Connell saying, like, dude, just check the ball down to the tight end sometimes. Like, just get a completion, keep moving. You don't have to rip it into a tight window 30 yards down the field every time. That's how we end up with sacks and interceptions and things like that. So, being able to normalize himself a little bit, which may come with time, but I think the thing about this quarterback competition is it cannot be won on high fives because the performance of the two players for their past histories is wildly different. And I know Kyler Murray is here because the Arizona Cardinals, known for their brilliance, by the way, the Arizona Cardinals decided to let him go. Probably the third worst franchise in football. Could never build a good enough team, a good enough coaching staff around him. But if you look at his recent performance going back to 2024, PFF had him as the 12th best quarterback in the NFL in 2024. They went 8-9, mediocre franchise, mediocre coaching, all that sort of stuff. But his individual performance, if you plop that on to last year's Minnesota Vikings, they do win 12 games, right? And knowing that, and knowing also that JJ McCarthy has the same quarterback rating through 10 games as Christian Ponder's first 10 games, like these guys are not starting a quarterback competition at the same level. This is not two high school prospects trying to make the college team and battling it out. These guys have histories in the NFL of actual real performances. And when you look around this roster, I also don't think anyone really cares that much about rah-rah because you have great leaders, Justin Jefferson, Brian O'Neill, these guys, Andrew Van Ginkel, Blake Cashman. These guys are 30 years old and they're trying to win. I remember last year when we talked to Brian O'Neill and it was kind of, what do you think of the offense is going to be this year or something? And he said, look, I don't care if we run 40 times or pass 40 times. Whatever it takes to win, I need to win. I've been around the NFL for long enough. I haven't gotten, playoff victories. I think he's been around for one playoff victory. Like, I need to get to the playoffs and win. So I don't think these guys need Kyler Murray to bring him over to his house to have a big old barbecue and be best friends. I think they need him to throw them the ball and scramble for first downs and win games. So the way I look at the competition in general is that you can't erase the priors of what these players have done. So you kind of look at it as like a NASCAR race where one player is in the pole position and the other player is in 38th place. And certainly the 38th guy can win the race, but a lot has to happen in order for the guy in 38th to beat the guy in first.
Let's take a quick break here and we'll come back more with Matthew Coller from Purple Insider. We are brought to you by
Scott for Aquarius. Home ownership is like a reality show. Your house loves drama. One day the AC quits. The dripping faucet keeps you up all night. Or the light switch never turns off. But Aquarius Home Services is ready for every plot twist. Our trusted HVAC techs, plumbers, and electricians bring the calm back home with $98 off any repair. Schedule today at AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
We also want to tell you that the Viking Update Show is presented to you by Onyx Hunt. Spring is the right time to explore new water. Fish are moving, shallow, activities high, and Onyx Fish helps you identify which lakes have the conditions species you're targeting, including weather tools to know when to go, not just where to go. It's only $34.99 for the year. Download Onyx Fish on the App Store. Go to onyxmaps.com/fish and fish smarter this season. Remember, the app does the scouting work so you don't have to. Again, onyxmaps.com/fish, only $34.99 a a year.
True Vision Institute in Bloomington. I've been telling you about it for months now. Just a life-changing experience for me to go to True Vision and have LASIK surgery this summer. Everything is easier for me after having LASIK surgery. I don't have the hassles of contacts and eyeglasses. I don't have to worry about going in for annual appointments to get the eyes checked, and also to make sure that I have the latest and greatest style of glasses, and I'm not looking like some washed up 46-year-old like I am, trying to stay ahead of the trends. I don't have that anymore. I'm just going around free and clear without anything on my face, and that's all thanks to the good folks at True Vision. When you go into True Vision, you will immediately notice how welcoming, how warm, how friendly, and how knowledgeable the staff is there. They get you in, they get you checked out, they find the right vision correction options for you, and then Dr. Chu is just world class in how he helps you through the procedure, how he makes sure that he gets you taken care of, and like he did with me. And I've had zero issues with my vision since I had the surgery in July. And I just keep kicking myself and wishing I would have done it 10 years ago. So go to truevision.com and set up your consultation. Tell them the John Krasinski Show sent you, and get on with your life. Make it easier on yourself, and just get to the point where you can kick your own self in the butt and say, why didn't I do this a long time ago?
Summer routines live or die by how easy they are. And honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
All right, back here on the Viking Update Show, I'm John Krasinski with Matthew Coller. Matthew, obviously we are going to be completely focused on the quarterbacks because it's the biggest thing. But what do you think what's the next thing that you're watching beyond that you think really is going to have a major role in whether this team takes a step forward, becomes much more playoff contention type of a team, or takes another step back and languishes like we saw last season?
I think this answer is probably about the trenches. When you go to the defensive side, now last year they did not get their bang for buck out of Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen. But at the end of the day, I mean, those guys produced a fair amount of pressures. They were top 10 in run defense. They were top 10 in yards per drive, points per drive, like every metric across the board. They're one of the better defenses in the NFL with 2 veteran players who had been around a really long time. And now you're replacing those guys with 2 players who have never played in the NFL before, who are very, very different than those guys. I mean, Caleb Banks did not have great production in college. He is drafted on 6'6" and 330 pounds and had a 92nd percentile broad jump for a defensive tackle, which is nuts. His brothers play basketball. He's got explosiveness that just doesn't even make sense for a man that's that big. So they're betting on their ability to prepare him during this training camp, which he had to miss OTAs and minicamp because of a foot injury, which already sets him back a little bit. There's going to be a lot to ask for this guy who is just a kid showing up for the first time in the NFL. And it's like, yeah, you're going to probably have to play a lot and make a decent impact, if not a really significant impact on this defensive line in order to get what they got last year out of, the guy you're replacing. And then Dominique Orange is going to have to matter too. They're in giant nose tackle where they're going to shift the way that they play a little bit to have a nose tackle, to have a Pat Williams prototype on the field, the Linval Joseph type on the field a lot more. And that means him going up against NFL centers that he's never faced before. And his job is to improve their ability to stop the run, which early in the season kind of got them last year. So there's the D-line dynamic there. And then they trade away Jonathan Grenard, which, I mean, to be honest, I really wasn't in that much favor of when they did it. And then you see how much money Philadelphia gave him when he went there, and you go, all right, well, that wouldn't have made much sense for the Vikings to give him an extension with $50 million guaranteed when you have Dallas Turner here. But you got a veteran quarterback you kept Aaron Jones, you kept TJ Hawkinson, guys you could have moved on from, but now you're going to move on from your best pass rusher. Well, that means, at least I think, that they really believe in what Dallas Turner can be and what they saw at the end of last year from him. They spent a high draft pick on him. They traded up. That's been well chronicled. And last year, he had kind of a breakout at the end of last year. As you know, beware of the second half of the season stats. Beware of the Brian Dozier, September. They used to hit 20 home runs at the last month of the season, and it would look way better than it was for the entire year. But I don't think that that's Dallas Turner based on his draft stock, his development over the last couple of years. Jonathan Grenard on his way out the door said, hey, I believe in the guy that's taken my job in Minnesota. And those two became very close over the last 2 years. But we don't really know, right? Until we see it happen, we don't really know. I think that Turner has everything there to be as good as Jonathan Grenard was. And then in terms of depth,
they got to add someone, right?
Right.
Because Van Ginkel's hurt a lot and Turner's unproven. And I loved what I saw from Dallas Turner down the stretch. That's great. And he's another guy, you walk by him in the locker room and you're like, my gosh, like this is a football player. Like this is an athlete. Like he's bigger than everyone. And so really promising, but like beyond that, there isn't much. And so I got to think that Nolan Teasley and the front office is looking around and trying to find some sort of decent veterans to bring in, at least one veteran to bring in, and just as a safety blanket.
Well, and that's another dynamic that we just don't know how anything's going to be handled now that Nolan Teasley is the general manager. I mean, because I think if you're him, there might be an argument for let's just see what this roster is made of, and then we'll make decisions. There's a surprising number of players that change hands toward the end of the summer. Like we watch a certain team, 2024, we watched an entire secondary play, and then they were like, now let's get rid of those guys, bring in Stephon Gilmore, bring in Fabian Moreau, and then we're going to have totally different players here. So that does happen. The offensive line, it's happened before where Dalton Reisner shows up at the end of the summer. So they could kind of wait and see if anyone emerges. And with Brian Flores, you always have to give him some benefit of the doubt. Like if these guys are here, they're here for a reason. The Bo Richters, the Chaz Chambliss, Tyler Batty, all these undrafted free agents who could, at this moment, fight it out for an outside linebacker position. And there have been times where we've been in training camp going like, you got to get serious about whatever position. What are you doing here? And then all of a sudden, like Ivan Pace ends up starting 2 full seasons, or Josh Metellus was a special teamer. And then all of a sudden he's playing all the time. So it does happen. I think that maybe you give it a chance first. The Teasley dynamic in general is something that we have no real feel for. Like if you're Kevin O'Connell, you definitely are feeling the heat and the pressure of what happened last year and the fact that Sam Darnold is a Super Bowl champion. And we know that the Wilfs have not tolerated missing the playoffs and all that. But Nolan Teasley doesn't feel that pressure. He's saying this is a brand new thing for me to look at and evaluate. So he may not be in that spot that once saw Rick Spielman trade a 4th-round pick for Chris Herndon and a 5th-round pick for a kicker/punter. People forget. Corey Vedvik, kicker/punter.
Man, those were the days. Those were days.
But you know why they did that was desperation. They were watching their kickers in training camp, and they were like, it's not going that well. We better scramble. Like, I don't think that Nolan Teasley feels that heat because he is going to totally revamp this roster after this year and make it the Nolan Teasley roster. So does he want to send off draft picks for a veteran player, or even, last year where they trade for Adam Thielen? Like, that's not a move that Nolan Teasley is going to do. So if you could sign somebody for cheap, then yeah, it makes sense. But otherwise it might be, well, let's see if you can coach these guys up. They're on the roster.
Are you surprised that TJ Hawkinson is still here? Like, I mean,
that's a good question.
I mean, I was watching that and just like, whew, like if you're looking for ways to wiggle out and to create competition and room and stuff like that, that one I looked at the end of last year and just like, man, I think this might be it for him.
Well, and I thought that him and Aaron Jones were probably both going to be gone. Mm-hmm. And I kind of assumed that when you're firing the general manager that you would just kind of take it mostly down and then the new GM could come in and rebuild it. With TJ Hawkinson, it's a tough one because I've always believed that tight ends are largely a product of their circumstances. I mean, you think about with Kyle Rudolph, who we know is a really, really good player. One year he catches 80-something passes because there was no blocking whatsoever, and Sam Bradford was just like, I got to complete passes to someone, I'll throw it underneath. Then I think he had better years with less catches, where 2017, I think he was even better. He had more, significant catches downfield, and the numbers were different, right? So he wasn't worse. It was really just circumstances. And the circumstances for TJ Hawkinson have been pretty brutal. Yeah. He tears his ACL, then he has to come back mid-season, which is a nightmare to try to come back in the middle of an NFL season. Like, guys, I'm back. I had no training camp, so I've just been working out on the side. And now, I got to play 70 snaps or something. That is awful. And he joins a quarterback who was not looking to check down, Sam Darnold. He was looking to go downfield. And so he didn't get as many receptions as you would have thought in 2024. And then last year, it's not just TJ Hawkinson whose production was down, it's everybody. And if you look at everyone's production when Carson Wentz played through 5 games, it looks normal. It looks like Kirk was the quarterback or Darnold. But with J.J. McCarthy, I mean, Jefferson is eking out 1,000 yards. And a good chunk of that came from Carson Wentz throwing it to him. And Jordan Addison's numbers way down. So it's not just TJ Hawkinson. I think that there were flashes last year that can still do it. I also think that Kevin O'Connell loves him, that he's such a hardworking player. He had to chip block a lot last year, which is not really his game. That they thought, if we're taking kind of one more shot at this with this large group of players that are veterans, that were part of the 2024 team, we might as well keep it together. And I think they really believed inside that building that they were really just competent quarterback play away from being a serious contender last year. I think he's part of that.
As we kind of try to put the cart fully in front of the horse here in July, if things do not go well this season, if they struggle, if they and I'm not talking like 3 or 4 wins, but I'm just talking stuck in the middle, 7 wins, 8 wins, miss the playoffs. What do you think is the future for Kevin O'Connell? Because I look at the way that the Wilfs presented Nolan Teasley and presented this new leadership structure, and man, it sure seems like Kevin O'Connell has an incredible amount of influence, authority, all those things. I'm not saying that he should be fired if it doesn't work or whatever, but it just seems like it's not, I don't feel it's as clean as this is now Nolan Teasley's roster and he is going in Nolan Teasley's vision, and whether KOC fits that or not, it's going to be his decision. This feels a lot more connected between the two of them, and I just wonder how that all is going to shake out if things don't work out.
Yeah, I definitely found it interesting that during the time that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah was here, no one would ever say who had final say of the 53. Not Mark Wilf when we asked, not Kwesi, not Kevin O'Connell. And in the first press conference for Nolan Teasley, Mark Wilf made it clear this is the gentleman who has control of the 53. And I do think that, Nolan Teasley, in order to get him away from Seattle, knowing that this guy is going to have future opportunities if you don't hire him, probably had a lot of say-so in exactly how he envisioned doing the job in terms of his relationship with the head coach. And I thought that was kind of a statement moment for Mark Wilf, being like, yep, this is the person who's running this team now. But Mark also said that the head coach answers to ownership, which has always been the case. So Nolan Teasley is not evaluating Kevin O'Connell. It is Mark and Ziggy Wilf and the ownership and that family. They are the ones making the decision on O'Connell. And you really got to love a guy to continue to believe in him after what happened with Sam Darnold. And I know they fired the big bad man who was the scapegoat on, it was that guy, but come on. I mean, 100%. We know that everyone was involved in that decision and that Kevin O'Connell had all the power after winning Coach of the Year to demand his quarterback come back, and they would have done it had he made that demand. So he's responsible. He couldn't coach up J.J. McCarthy the way that he thought he could. I think it bailed him out, the fact that they were able to win the last 5 games and the team didn't melt down, and was sort of proof of the things that you hire Kevin O'Connell for, which is the culture and the players galvanizing around him, that's always happened. I do think there's chicken and egg to that with if you bring in Aaron Jones and you keep Brian O'Neill and Justin Jefferson on your team, it's unlikely that these guys are just going to quit and they're going to have a locker room that quits. So there's a little bit of rigging the deck in his favor, but everything I've ever heard from players, the NFLPA survey, like they really believe in him as their leader. And he has won a lot of games. When his starting quarterback, Kirk Cousins or Sam Darnold, is playing, he's 31-11. And I think that stat really rings through of, like, let's not overreact to something bad that happened, catastrophic even. But when he's had his starting quarterback, your offense is pretty good. Your passing game is usually excellent. Justin Jefferson is won Offensive Player of the Year under Kevin O'Connell, and their relationship is very close. Jefferson's future after this year is up in the air. I mean, we are in a world where star players are demanding trades and contracts are set up, both in the NBA and the NFL, to either extend or trade. And that's where Jefferson's going to get to at the end of this year. Well, if he wants Kevin O'Connell as his forever coach, then that's going to weigh heavily, I think, in a decision. I think if you gave Kevin O'Connell, I've always believed that teams just hire and fire coaches too much. I think if you gave Kevin O'Connell the next 10 years to find his quarterback and build another roster with Nolan Teasley, who is a tremendous evaluator. I really like some of the people that they've brought into the organization, all those things from a process perspective. That's how everything is done in sports now, right? Is process over results, except for firing and hiring coaches, where teams are just like, no, I'm pissed, you're fired. Like, that just happens all the time. So, I mean, I heard a story, John, this offseason of an owner who was going to keep his coach, but then one of his friends, a different owner, fired their coach. So he was like, we should fire ours. Right. Right. I mean, that's just right. You still have that element of total insanity. So inside these buildings, they're, trying to find the finest detail. And then the owner's just like, I don't know. So I think that the Wilfs are very practical people. I think they're probably the sanest owners in the entire NFL. Yeah. And I expect them to look at the bigger picture of this is still a young coach. He was hired very young, had no experience as a head coach, and is still growing. But I think that even if they don't win in the playoffs this year, I think you need to see growth in some key areas from Kevin O'Connell. I think you need to see him navigate this quarterback competition correctly. And I think you need to see a team that overachieves what Vegas thinks they're going to be. Their over-under is 8.5. 8's not good enough. Right. So, and the other thing, too, is that the Wilfs have not tolerated missing the playoffs multiple seasons in a row. Zimmer missed 2 years in a row, and he was out. You go back to, Mike Tice. He had a winning record, but missed the playoffs at 9-7. Out. Brad Childress, the down year after the big year with Favre. Out. Les Frazier makes the playoffs. Bad year. Out. So, I mean, I think that they should really think long and hard, because I believe that Kevin O'Connell is a very, very good NFL head coach. He's not perfect. Nobody's coach is. But over the years, I think there can be growth even in him. I think if he got the right roster, the right quarterback, that you can win a ton of games with him. I think in the playoffs, it can be kind of random, and judging off 2 playoff games is not a good process. It's almost like judging the quarterback off of 1 playoff game would probably be bad process. So I would be much in favor of being very patient with this, but they're not always that way, and the NFL isn't always that way, and that's just the reality. And with this group, you should win. I mean, if you win 7 games with this team and you have relatively good health, like that's going to be a massive underperformance. And I don't know how many of those the Wilfs are willing to tolerate.
Matthew Coller, Purple Insider, always good stuff. Listen to him, engage with his content. It's great. Appreciate you taking some time before the 4th of July weekend. And I'm sure we'll be catching up with you at training camp, and it's right around the corner, man.
All right. Can't wait to see you and LeBron out there watching camp.
We will be doing it side by side. This has been the Viking Update Show, brought to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios. We are presented by Onyx Maps and True Vision Institute. Thanks to Davide Rosso for producing. Thanks for Jim Suhan for leaving me on an island, as he always does. And we will talk to you all next week.